First off, I just want you to know that tensions are running very high with Star Wars right now. It's almost political levels of divisiveness, with people not wanting to hear what's on the other side. And I just want you to know, there's a lot of accusing as to who's on what side these days. And I just want you to know that I don't have an axe to grind with Star Wars. I liked The Last Jedi, but yet I understood why so many people didn't. And from a business perspective, I thought it was a very bad move, and I've likened it to Batman v Superman, where I had a similar situation. I liked the movie, but yet I understood why it angered so many. So with this film, The Rise of Skywalker, I'm going through quite an effort here to really give you a detailed critique of the film. Both what I liked about it, I did like some stuff, and then what I didn't like about it. And I really didn't like a lot of this movie. But I hope that you have the same measured approach in your comments down below. All right, so let's get started. Now, Bob Iger has said infamously, well, I don't know, it depends on what camp you're in, right? He said, don't worry, things are going to change. But he said where Disney went wrong was that with Star Wars is that they made too many movies too quickly. But I think that's incorrect. I guess that's an element of what happened, but that's not the big mistake. I think it's pretty clear to anyone, and probably Bob too, he just doesn't want to say it. But Disney's actual mistake was trying to wrap up the storylines of the original characters while simultaneously introducing new characters. And as a result, every character got shortchanged. It's a mess. There's some of you actually tweeted this earlier today as a reaction to my emoji review, and it's almost impossible to pull out of this nosedive at this point. Also, let's hope that, and speaking of the nosedive that they're in, let's hope that Disney's trilogy here serves as a warning to other franchises and Star Wars itself going forward, because it will be back. But that's that you must have a concrete outline, right? No matter how you feel about Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, he has admitted himself to throwing out JJ Abrams' original loose ideas. It's kind of on JJ too, because he didn't give a concrete outline going forward. He was like, this is kind of the direction I'd like to go in. So of course Rian had ideas, right? And even worse, Rian Johnson not only threw out what JJ kind of started, but didn't really introduce any of his own concrete ideas in episode 8. In that film, Rian Johnson didn't even do much to move the story forward. Again, no matter how you feel about that movie, it kind of was a wasted chapter, right? In a trilogy that doesn't have the time to waste. So as a result, The Rise of Skywalker has the impossible task of trying to course correct and wrap up the stories of the old and new characters all in just 2.5 hours. And because, again, that's an impossible task that JJ and company clearly know and realize, they try to cheat, but it's not, why am I putting that in quotation marks? They cheat. It made me angry. They try to cheat by appealing to fans with massive amounts of fan service. And they even go so far as to have a in-your-face Hallmark moment. That was obviously shot before the Hallmark situation, but JJ Abrams and company, when that happened last week, were probably like, ooh, this is so good for us. But really, this far in the going into 2020, this is your LGBT representation? Come on. Again, it's just sloppy fan service. And the fan service is so sloppy, plus this movie, as has this entire trilogy, continues to borrow heavily from Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I called from day one. In fact, the people next to me at the press screening when Daisy Ridley's Rey first showed up on screen, they were like, boy, she looks like Aang. And she did. All right, so anyway, the movie not only is sloppy, but it's so desperately pandering, it's both hilarious and insulting at the same time. Audiences are really smart, particularly today. We can see what you're doing. And it's kind of insulting that you think that we would, I don't know, some of you, I don't know, do you fall for it? I'd be curious, but we'll discuss that in a spoiler review. Ironically, though, it reminded me of the final season of Game of Thrones, whose showrunners, it's ironic because the showrunners for that show just bolted from Star Wars. And incidentally, they lost their own outline as well, and that's what caused a lot of their problems. All hail the outline! It's so important. And two recent examples of impressive outlines that resulted in tremendous payoffs are Avengers Endgame and HBO's Watchmen, and I bring them up to prove that this kind of epic, intelligent genre storytelling with a long game, but still entertaining in the short game, not only can be done, but can be done by multiple creative camps. This isn't just, Star Wars is Disney too, but this isn't like, oh, Marvel's the only one who can do anything. No, HBO's Watchmen did this as well, in an incredibly satisfying next chapter to that story. If only Star Wars, I'd say hire Damon Lindelof, but the guy's such a mixed bag in terms of results. I can't believe I just said that. That's how bad the situation with Star Wars is. I'm recommending they hire Damon Lindelof. All right, now to be fair, as I tweeted after seeing this movie, there is some cool stuff in The Rise of Skywalker. And we'll discuss that first before going over the bad. But most of the discussion of the bad will, of course, have to be saved for the spoiler review. All right, so what did I like? Well, you know what? I really liked the main characters. I like these actors. I think they're great. Daisy Ridley is stuck playing one of the biggest Mary Sues of all time, in large part because this trilogy has never had the time to properly develop Rey. But Ridley does what she can with what she's given. She is 110% believable as a Jedi Master, and she gets to do some really cool stuff here. Ridley's athleticism is striking. And I also think very realistic. She's an extremely realistic action hero. I think she's great. Ridley also has a very expressive open face, which makes her mesmerizing. Actually, I would think that's the right word, mesmerizing in her plethora of close-ups. Her eyelashes are so long. She seems not to be wearing any makeup, but she looks fantastic. All right, I can see why little girls idolize Rey. I really do. She's very much a feminist hero, including in how she interacts with her male co-stars, without giving too much away. I think the friendships that you have between a male and female characters, I think that's really refreshing to see. I liked that. Now, sure, Ridley's Rey is a bland hero, but that's not her fault. That's not the actress's fault. But what's not bland is the bond between Rey and Kylo Ren. Their scenes continue to be electric when they're together. That's very cool. And one can't help but wonder while watching them what kind of trilogy we might have gotten if they had just made that, if they had made the Luke, Leia, and Han movie first, and then focused on something that's new, thank God, from the original trilogy, for this new trilogy. Rey and Kylo Ren have an amazing lightsaber battle. That was very cool. It had a lot of flipping. I liked it. It was really neat. And also, they both seemed to struggle, which I appreciated. A lot of us have felt Rey was like too good too fast with the lightsaber, but this was a very good battle. And they both have incredible Force moments. And I have to say, Daisy Ridley in particular is very good with the hand acting. She's almost like Benedict Cumberbatch in Doctor Strange. I would say as good. She was really selling the use of the Force. I thought that was great. But they also have the most fan service moments in the movie. Truly, the Daenerys and Jon Snow of Star Wars. And wow, we finally got the Finn and Poe we've always wanted. Not any romance, but a true bromance. They were great. Oscar Isaac becomes the new Han Solo we always knew he was meant to be. And I can't believe it. Finn is not only finally a respectable character, but a really likable one at that. All of their scenes, mostly together, are excellent, and they captured the classic Star Wars magic. They were great. I know they don't want to be Disney Plus, but I would totally watch a Finn and Poe Disney Plus series. And that's probably where that's the only real place I think they can go, because I think going forward we would like a totally fresh trilogy. As for the droids, Chewie and Lando, they're the droids, Chewie and Lando. I mean, neither here nor there. I kind of liked the new Conehead robot, droid, but I called it a robot. Droid, but that never really went anywhere. Now, what's not so good? All right, so again, the fan service. The best example I can give you that's non-spoilery is the Knights of Ren. There's been a lot of spoilery spots in the last few days. They're not spoilery. They're like in the first 20 minutes of the movie. They really hit the ground running because they have so much to do and not enough time. But they show at the beginning of the movie the Knights of Ren following Kylo onto his ship, right? And they act like they've been around the whole trilogy. Not like they were just thrown away and everyone was like, who are those guys? Instead, they walk onto the ship and a stormtrooper says to another one, again, in some very sloppy exposition, oh, look, it's the Knights of Ren. And they're like, oh, cool, I love those guys. And you're like, what is this? And also, the Knights of Ren never do anything. Still, they never really do anything. Instead, they just kind of walk around the movie like they wandered out of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But they're not even funny. It's embarrassing. A lot of this movie is embarrassing. Really, it's embarrassing. Like the stormtroopers, they're just too incompetent at this point. It's no longer funny. It's ridiculous. I mean, they kind of maybe give a reason for that, and we'll discuss that in the spoiler review. But it's not good enough. But speaking of funny, at my press screening, a number of times the audience laughed at the movie. In its sloppy desperation to be what was once unanimously loved. It's just trying way too hard. And one person who got laughed at the most was Richard E. Grant, which is kind of sad because he's such a big Star Wars fan in real life. But again, maybe that's the problem. He wants it too bad. He wanted it too bad when he was making the movie. And that desperation really comes across on screen. I'm also sad to say that inserting Carrie Fisher into this movie did not work. She actually has a lot of screen time, but it's obvious when it's just old footage of her either digitally inserted or when they throw in a body double from behind, right? They're like, oh, that's not even Carrie Fisher, that's somebody with her hairstyle. And her scenes are written around the dialogue she recorded for former movies. And they're not well written around that dialogue, which makes the scenes not only seem disjointed, I mean, it's not at all organic. You're like, I know exactly what you're doing. But also they make Leia come across as passive and detached in those scenes, something that Leia never was in any of the movies. She's famous for being the opposite of that. So it's kind of sad to see that's what's become of General Leia in her final chapter. There's also, speaking of, well, obviously Carrie Fisher tragically passed away, but there's a lot of death in the Rise of Skywalker. Like a lot of it. So many people die on both sides. Sure, they're mostly like extras, but there's like a lot of people who die. And it's really shocking how little the remaining characters care and how quickly they move on. For instance, one character dies a fiery death and everyone's like, oh no! And then something good happens and everyone's like, woohoo! And the music swells and you're like, that character just died. Like, there's no gravitas. It reminds me of Narnia, the Chronicles of Narnia movies, where those kids led all those mythical characters to their death, and then we're like, that didn't go so well. I'm gonna go home now. I'm gonna go back to my bedroom in England, and you guys just all are dead. Like, it was kind of like that. It was weird. Also, the new female characters, while highly likable, are used so sparingly and it's just really a waste of time. It's a waste of their time to play the characters and to design them, and it's a waste of time that could have been used on the characters that we already have that need more time. Finally, there are a lot of big reveals, many which have unfortunately been spoiled already online, but some have not. Some I think some were a surprise to me. But they range from, again, sloppy and desperate to quite frankly infuriating. And what's infuriating about it is that clearly Disney, JJ Abrams, and Kathleen Kennedy are willing to stoop to the lowest depths with no shame to try and win the fans back. I really had a problem with it. There was one thing in particular, and you'll know it when you see it, which made me really angry. All right, so Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker is sloppy, desperate, and totally without integrity. And the new trilogy actors, I think, do a really nice job. And maybe, again, this could have been something if they'd made that Luke, Han, and Leia just the one-off first, and then just started fresh with this new story, or at least a chapter which wasn't overcrowded. You get glimpses of that here when they focus, of course, more on what was supposed to be the original trio and the villain that they're facing. So Avatar: The Last Airbender. So should you see The Rise of Skywalker? If you're not a Star Wars fan, honestly, I'd skip it. But if you are a Star Wars fan, even a casual one, you need to ask yourself, do you want to finish the story? And on that note, it's like what Kylo Ren says. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the courage to do it. And either you have to see this, mediocre, somewhat annoying movie just because you want to sit through it and see what happens, or even though you love Star Wars, you're going to miss it because you want to send Disney a message. You want to have the boycott operational, right? So my question, I guess now also to you is, what do you have to do between those two things, and do you have the courage to do it? Now, if you're maybe you don't care about all this, you're like, the stakes aren't that high, Grace, well, then I would say, yeah, go out of curiosity. If you're like me, it's hard for me not to finish a story. So go for a matinee. But I think the repeat viewing for this movie is going to be horrible. And that's, of course, going to affect the box office. But you never know with Disney, but we'll see. We'll know, of course, soon enough. So that's my non-spoiler review for The Rise of Skywalker. A spoiler review coming soon. So be very careful. You know what? People are really trying to spoil this movie. You might want to be careful in the comment section. But share your own thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.